It's that time of year again! Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are going to be doing the mid-year freak out book tag. Alright, before we get to anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what is the best book you've read so far this year. Once we hit June, everybody starts doing this mid-year freakout tag. It's just a requirement when you're on booktube, so as per usual, I'm here again to do it for y'all once more. Seeing as how it's kind of just a booktube staple, I don't think it's really even necessary to tag people. I wasn't tagged. I'm not going to tag anybody. But if you're so inclined, say I tagged you. Starting out, first question, best book you've read so far in 2023. Now, I'm going to be very honest with y'all. This was really sad because I did not have enough books competing for this spot. This actually made me realize how long it's been since I had a 5-star, and that's really sad. And on one hand, I kind of want to do one of those read until you get a 5-star videos, but on the other hand, I'm terrified that that's going to put me into a slump. But if that's what the people want, that's what they want. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. Anyway, my answer was actually the first book I read this year, which, yikes. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I say yikes just because first book I read this year, and apparently the only way we're going is down. This is the first book in a adult fantasy series in which we are set in a world based on pre-Columbian America, and we are following multiple different individuals from some of these different tribes, and we're seeing how they converge together as a lunar eclipse approaches. Arguably, I would say our main three characters include 𝗖cie, who is a teak, sort of reminiscent to a siren, and a pirate captain who is tasked with trying to take Serapio, one of our other perspectives, let's go with the cultist, who is a little unusual. And then on the opposite side, we're following Naranpa, who is the sun priest for one of these clans, and technically sort of the leader of all of the clans. And what's really interesting with this is you spend a lot of time going back and forth seeing who's right, who's wrong, what experiences have these people had in their background that is influencing them, and then there is a ton of additional political scheming that goes on through many of the background characters as well. I really enjoyed this book. Unfortunately, I do think the second book had a bit of middle book syndrome, but I'm very excited to finish things out with the third that comes out. Unfortunately, I don't think until next year. But thus far, I'd probably have to say this is my best book of 2023. Next up, best sequel you've read so far in 2023. Thankfully, I at least had a few of those. First is What If You and Me by Ronnie Lauren. This is the second in her Say Everything series, and thank God this one lived up to my love of the first. Ronnie Lauren just creates incredibly well fleshed out characters, and this one has forced proximity with a bit of an age gap followed with friends to lovers, and I just really adored these two. Both of our characters are struggling with issues from their past. Andy, our female main character, has PTSD and anxiety, while on the opposite side we have Hill, our male main character, who recently became disabled and is also dealing with anxiety. I just adored seeing these two slowly fall in love with each other, and the healing that they go through, phenomenal, so good. And interesting, my other sequel is also the next book in a romance series, Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. I actually had an arc of this and I freaking loved it. This book was so sweet, it was so wholesome, it was spoony, it was a little bit spicy. Again, just phenomenally created characters. We have Lex, who recently has lost his job, unfortunately been disowned by his parents, and is hiking the Pacific Crest Trail to try and figure out what it is he wants to do for the next step in his life. While on the opposite side, we have Ben, who has made some poor decisions in his past, but thinks he is finally starting to become an official adult, determined not to make any more poor decisions, one of those being 𝗖cie. The two of them end up forming a bond while they are hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and things develop from there. The way things grow from strangers to friends to lovers in this is so freaking sweet. The healing we see each of our characters go through, the growth, and then the way they come back together was just so adorable. I loved this book. I'm gonna continue talking about it. I definitely need to get my hands on a copy. Next up, new release you haven't read yet but want to. Another yikes, mostly because this reminded me that I still have yet to read the third book in the Kingdom of Souls trilogy, Master of Souls, which came out a few months ago, and I'm disappointed in myself. However, I will say this is another series that I think had a bit of middle book syndrome. I gave the first book 4 and this one 3. I haven't heard the best things about the last book so far, but this is sort of an underrated series also, meaning I've maybe heard one review. This is a YA fantasy series inspired by West African folklore and mythology. I really enjoyed that element of it, and I liked learning about how the author had incorporated it into the world. The world building in this is definitely one of my favorite elements, and the way things evolve so much in just the first book alone is fantastic, but I'm nervous to get to the third book and see how things end. I need to do it. I just need to bite the bullet and finish the series out. I guess I could also say The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty, although with this one, I'm a little bit more hesitant, and I actually have a valid reason, which is this is the first book in what's going to be a new fantasy series, and this is the only one out. If I start the series, that means I have to wait, if I love it, for the next book and the last book, when, you know, I could just put it off until all 3 books are out, which is a ridiculous idea. Nat. Adult fantasy following a female pirate captain who was world renowned and ends up getting pulled back into the game by an offer she can't refuse. That's all I really need to know about this. I believe this actually is considered a prequel in terms of the universe for Chakraborty's other series, the David Bad trilogy. And that also has me very intrigued because I want to see if there's any overlap. At the same time, that means starting one series and also probably finally diving into another series, which we'll talk about City of Brass again here soon. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have multiple, because of course I do. First is Rogue by Mona Awad, Mona Awad, let's just stop right there. Bunny, all's well. 2 books that were so freaking weird, but I greatly enjoyed. And this one, I believe, is supposed to be a bit of a Snow White retelling. However, it also is looking at the beauty industry, and of course, that's something I'm fascinated by. I'm very, very excited for this, and thank God I have an arc of it, but it doesn't come out until September, so I won't be reading it for a few more months. I think around that same time, The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White will also be coming out, which I'm very excited for this after his prior book, which was a YA dystopian that I actually greatly enjoyed, and that's a shocking feat in and of itself. However, this was beautifully done in terms of tackling religious trauma, and then the way it mixed a sci-fi horror with cult discussions, phenomenal, and I loved it. This one, I believe, is also following a trans main character. However, he comes from a line of mediums, and unfortunately, he is being set up for an arranged marriage, but before that can happen, he ends up being diagnosed with some sort of majestic illness and sent to a sanatorium. Cannot wait. Also, this cover. It's stunning. Andrew Joseph White, whoever does your covers, they do a phenomenal job. I should probably look into that, honestly. It wouldn't be that hard. And then finally is one that, oh my god, I'm so excited from the tagline alone. What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. Oh my god. The Mummy meets Death on the Nile. That's enough right there. Automatically got added to my TBR. The Mummy is one of my all-time favorite movies, and any knockoff movie that's similar to it, I will automatically watch. So of course, if you pitch that to me with a book, yeah, I'm gonna read it. Definitely I'm gonna read it. Next question. Biggest disappointment. For this, unfortunately, I have 2. First is The Silence of Girls by Pat Barker, which I read for my Greek retellings 5x5 that I did recently. Yeah, this one did not go well for me. I don't like the fact that this is sold to me as a feminist retelling, but I genuinely don't think this book even passes the Bechdel test. So it's not about feminism. It's not about women helping women. No, it's not about them trying to overcome the experiences they're having. It's just about seeing all of the terrible things that they have to live through inflicted on them by the men in the war, which on one hand, I get it, is probably true to original stories, to unfortunately reality, but that's not what I went into this book wanting. Why the hell would you sell me a feminist retelling and then at the end of the book tell me I'm wrong for assuming this was going to be a feminist retelling? Yeah, I'm still bitter. I also have For You and No One Else by Ronnie Lauren, which hurts me so deeply because this is the last book in that Say Everything series, and I just wasn't really sold on the romance in this one. There were certain elements in it that I still really enjoyed, namely the hero character. I did really like him. We'll talk about him again here shortly. As a romance, it just was really underwhelming. I'm sad about it. That's why it's in my biggest disappointments, obviously. For the next one, biggest surprise, The Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I didn't anticipate that I was going to go into this book and love it so much. Basically, how I'm going to continue to sell this is it's sort of a fantastical Wuthering Heights retelling, at least in the beginning. Things do eventually change. There are 3 different parts in this, and really only the first part starts that way, and it develops a lot more from that. That's really a solid synopsis, in my opinion. Although this is set in a fantastical world and 2 out of 3 of our main characters have telekinetic abilities, really this sort of feels like a historical romance where we're following this girl who is being introduced into society, but unfortunately for her, the man she ends up falling for is her cousin's childhood sweetheart. He is doing everything he can to get closer to her cousin. It is drama-filled, it is juicy, and I adored our main character Nina so deeply. SMG's character work is always phenomenal, and the growth we see Hector, the love interest, go through, also very well done. Plus atmosphere work. Atmosphere is something I can always rely on her for. I thought I would like this book, but I did not think I would look back on it so often. I think about this book way too much for a historical romance, which is something I usually say I have no interest in, but this did it for me. This was so good. Next question. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? So whenever I officially label an author as a new favorite, I feel like I have to at least have read 2 of their books and given 2 of them, let's say, 4 stars or more. Once again, unfortunately, those have been few and far between so far this year. But I can say, What If You and Me by Ronnie Lauren did officially make Ronnie Lauren a favorite author. 2 5-star books in this single series. Yes, the last book was a letdown. We're not going to talk about it, but these 2 books, I'm going to trust anything else she comes out with a very good time. I think this series is the only traditionally published books that she has, and everything else is indie published. I guess I may have to officially jump on the indie romance train to get more of her work. Newest fictional crush. Like I said, we were going to be talking about this one again, purely for the fact that Beck, the male love interest in this book, is literally scarily just like my boyfriend. I kind of have to put Beck in here. From his appearance, his personality, his job, his interests, like across the board, it was kind of weird how alike Beck was to Josh. I will say, not including his tragic backstory. That's not true. But everything else, perfect, which I think also made the fact that I wasn't really sold on the romance in this one hurt even more because he was the perfect hero for me. Newest favorite character. This one I also had a hard time with. I wasn't really sure on any characters that really stood out from the books I've been reading. I think I'm gonna have to go with Murderbot from the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. They're just a whole mood. They're so funny. They're so relatable. Murderbot is literally it's an android who is sentient and is trained to kill people, but all they want to do is just lay around and binge watch their serial TV shows, which honestly, fair. They skate by doing the bare minimum to ensure that nobody can figure out they technically aren't having to listen to them anymore. They're doing just enough to maintain their job before they can go back to just binge watching. I love it. I love that so much. It's so entertaining. Not to mention, for being an android, they're incredibly anxious and entertaining. Murderbot is just so relatable. Next question. Book that made you cry. Now, I will say, I do tend to cry fairly easily at books. I mean, not like full out sobs, but I tear up quite easily. So I tried to pick a book that really had a bigger impact on me, made me cry a lot more. And the only one that really came to mind was Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, which I don't think should be terribly surprising because the story is chronicling Michelle Zauner's relationship with her mother after her cancer diagnosis and eventual death. That right there is a very heavy topic to look at. The way she relates things to food is something I absolutely loved with this book, but there was a single element that every time I thought about it, it really hit me in the heart. It made me cry a lot. You actually saw it in one of my reading vlogs, so I'll put a link to that in the cards if you're curious. I didn't like sob over everything in this book, but that one element really hit me, and I think it's just because I could relate it to an exact moment in my own personal life. Yeah, if I keep talking about this, I'm gonna cry right now. Next question. Book that made you happy. I feel like I could also give you many books for this, but one very easy one was In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I mean, the found family and his stories always automatically wins my heart. The characters he creates and the dynamics between all of them brings a smile to my face every single time, and I felt that the entire way through with this book. I will never doubt Klune's ability to write family feels. He's phenomenal at it, and every single time I read one of his stories, those feels bring a smile to my face. Next question. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year? For that, I absolutely have to say Adventures of Amina. I mean, come on. This is stunning. This is gorgeous. This book is beautiful. Like, seriously? I mean, I'm in love with this cover so much. This cover puts the American cover to shame, in my opinion. This is beautiful. I can't wait to have more shelf space where I can actually display this. And then finally, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? A lot of them. First up, I'm gonna just do a really quick rapid fire through the books that I still need to read from my 10 books to read in 2023. Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed, The Dark Tide by 𝗖cie když𝘁ှិः, City of Brass by 𝗖cie bych𝘁ှិः. Told you this would be coming back around. Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen, and Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. Alright y'all, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!